In an ideal world, people would slowly improve generation to generation. Everything the generation before failed at, they'd teach the next generation to avoid, and slowly we improve with time. Now, why doesn't this happen? Because life isn't just a video game that you can simulate in that way. And the real world is ugly as fuck. I think Kendrick Lamar would agree with me when I say that a lot of what is causing more ugliness is people's unwillingness to talk about it. The best way to combat that ugliness would be to talk through it. But sadly, that would mean we have to be vulnerable, and being vulnerable is scary. I'm gonna say this off the rip. This is not a video breaking down the hidden meanings of Mr. Morale. This is a video talking about how in your face the universal themes on this album really are. I Am All of Us is the first thing we saw in the Heart Part 5 video. And as much as that may sound like corny, Kendrick thinks we are his people type of thing, to me it's more so, Kendrick sees himself in all of us. As so much of Mr. Morale is not only about how we all share so much of the same struggles, but also the battle we all go out of our way to avoid addressing those issues. Mr. Morale has gotten more love post Kendrick Drake battle, but it's not nearly enough in my opinion. It deserves so much more. I think the uncomfortable themes, production, and delivery turn a lot of people off of this album, and that's why it hasn't had as strong as an impact as all of his other albums. But if people just took the time to sit down and really listen to this album, I just don't see how they wouldn't come out of it with something valuable. I understand that Kendrick makes it a big point to not be anybody's savior, and I don't believe anybody should be looked at as anybody's savior, so don't take this the wrong way. But if there was any way that I could somehow get the loudest megaphone in the world, a megaphone that everyone on the planet could hear clearly, in the face of all of the ugliness of the current world, I would learn every language imaginable and tell everyone to listen to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers by Kendrick Lamar. When I first heard this album, I hated it. I was excited for it because wow, new Kendrick Lamar, oh my god. But I was 16, and this is an album about some of the darkest lessons a man in his 30s was learning. I was not ready for it. On top of that, it didn't sound that welcoming to me. It wasn't one of those albums that you can mostly enjoy even if you ignore the lyrics and just jam to it. It's pretty impossible to ignore these lyrics. So yeah, I hated it. And it wasn't a grower in a way that albums usually grow on people. Usually albums that grow on me will grow on me after a few weeks after they first dropped, but this came out pretty early in 2022, and I remember making a post saying that this was the most disappointing album of the year at the end of 2022. But certain songs kept making me want to come back, and I still found myself somehow listening to the album a ton despite this. Then my senior year of high school came around, and I was in this weird transitional phase where a lot of talks about growing up were coming up, and becoming an adult was just terrifying to me. This is when the album fully clicked with me. It inspired this self-reflection period in my life where I just saw so much of myself in the album. And as I was growing as a human being, my relationship with the album grew as well. I've become so much more of an honest person because of it. A lot of people watch my videos and think I'm this guy that's always been super vulnerable. Sadly, that's not true. I've been doing YouTube for a while, and if you watch any of my old videos on my other channels, you'd see how night and day my content is pre-Mr. Morale love and post-Mr. Morale love. So yeah, this album means the world to me and has allowed me to connect with people in ways I never had prior to it. Feeling comfortable enough to show my real self, and that's been pretty cool so far. Because when somebody likes me now, it's them liking the real me, not some inauthentic version. I'm gonna go through a lot of the tracks, but not all of them. Only the ones that I have the most to say about. So enough intro, let's get into United in Grief.
Hope you find some peace of mind in this lifetime.
Could you imagine a better way to start an album after the entire world has been asking where you are for 5 years? Everyone was on the edge of their seats, wondering what Kendrick was going to talk about on this album. And to start it off with Whitney saying, tell them the truth, tell them you're...
I've been going through something. 1,855 days. I've been going through something. Be afraid.
Oh my god! That is the payoff after 5 years. That is how you successfully farm mysterious aura. Cardi. I remember that morning when this album dropped, and I was so intrigued by the intro of the intro song. Then he goes into like 5 different flows, those Fortnite Tommy gun sounding drums. I really love the I grieve different refrain. Like, stop playing with me, I grieve different. We do not grieve the same, buddy. All while the song is called United in Grief. To me, that's him kind of doing a toxic masculinity masculinity thingy. He's saying he grieves different, but he then talks about seeing so many other people doing the exact same things to cope with their grief later in the album. That's why I've always liked the title of this song, as it's a good 3-word summary for a lot of this album, and it works well in contrast with the words I grieve different. You're gonna hear me say the word duality a ton throughout this video. It's just the Kendrick thing, man. Duality's all over his discography. You can't have the damn this shit is hard without the this shit hard. Which, speaking of, track 2 and 95. 3 minutes of pure disgust for the inauthenticity of the world. A lot of this album feels like the preview to the Drake battle, but this one right here feels more like that than anything. And hey, maybe I'm reaching, but I'm gonna take 10 steps and I'm taking off top 5? I don't know, man. You tell me. I can't think of any songs that slap as hard as this while simultaneously talking about everyone. It feels like Kendrick was in the studio writing these verses being like, oh yeah, that's another great group of people to criticize. Put them in the song. It feels like a song only Kendrick can make in that way. A very one-of-a-kind banger, and that's why I love it. Like I said, I'm gonna talk about the duality of Kendrick throughout this video. I'd be surprised if there's any point of Kendrick's career that doesn't play into that duality. Like, what's the most recent thing Kendrick has been on? The Clips album. The 2-time Gemini with the genocide, I'm generous. I went to his tour this year, and the whole thing is so clearly Kendrick being this hard, masculine man, and SZA being this I love nature and everything is beautiful girl, and the necessity for both. This song feels like the most big stepper side of that duality moment on the album. Then a few songs later, we get what I think is one of the most important songs of Kendrick's career. If we're talking duality throughout his career, it's the mad city to the good kid, the pimp to the butterfly, the wickedness to the weakness. It feels like Father Time is the roots of all of that side of Kendrick. My life is a plot, twisted from directions that I can't see. This probably sounds corny, but to me, these aren't just lyrics. I don't even need to hear the music. Obviously, Kendrick and I are two completely different people from two completely different backgrounds. But when I read the lyrics to this song, I see so much of my own life. Everything those four walls had taught me made habits bury deep. Quick side note, but I was reading the lyrics while re-listening to this album, and I saw this terrible Genius annotation. The Genius annotation for the lyric just said, this could be a reference to these walls? This is a song about Kendrick's relationship with his dad, and These Walls is a song about Kendrick Lamar having sex. What is Genius cooking? Please, y'all, make your own interpretation, because that's always way more fun to hear than whatever the hell this is. But yeah, back to that lyric. Everything that happened in Kendrick's home growing up created these unhealthy habits. For the song specifically, Kendrick talking about the habits he learned from his father, and that's just so incredibly relatable. I have a dad who was in the army for a pretty long time. He wasn't always around for a good portion of the beginning of my life, and because of it, I grew really close to my mom. When he came back, he was my best friend, and I loved him then, and I love him now. But he had this super military outlook on life. The way he sees it is that the world is going to treat you like shit, and not ever feel sympathy for you. So to prepare me for that, he made being at home feel that way as much as he could. I remember being into wrestling as a kid, so he made me practice intensely every single day, to the point that I fell out of love for it. He has this thing he called the triggered game, where me and my brothers would try to make each other mad all the time. If your anger is triggered, then you lose. He still to this day admits to being super contrarian to everything I say, just so I would look at other perspectives. Instead of a yes man, I kinda had a no man for a dad. And my dad was always super strict. Whenever I did anything bad, I was coming home to get whooped. As a kid, I was scared of my dad and didn't really see eye to eye with him. But then later in my high school years, I started to understand why he did all this stuff and began to agree with him. He was on his there are no two words more harmful than good job. But as I grow even more, I don't see it that way. Don't get me wrong, I understand where my dad comes from and why he does it. I'm lucky to have a dad who went out of his way in these strategic ways to make me a better man. It sounds like Kendrick's dad was doing it with good intentions as well, but everything my dad didn't want was everything I was. Cause I'm a sensitive little weird art kid. Growing up, I was doing YouTube and making music and shooting short films. There are other kids that are into those same things growing up, and I think they mostly fall into two categories. The kids that have no shame in it and feel free to be themselves and be weird and don't care what anyone thinks about them, and the kids that feel like sad little outsiders. My theory is the difference between these two is what happens at home. Looking back now, I think I would be an entirely different person if I was coming home to what felt like a safe zone. I've always had this little annoying voice in my head that feels like it's trying to humble me anytime I feel any sort of confidence. Obviously, this isn't entirely because of my dad, but man, so much of what that little voice says sounds just like some shit my dad would say. I feel like growing up with brothers who who are constantly trying to get at each other, and there's always a bunch of competition, minimize any chances of me actually talking about these things I was going through. Do you think a group of dudes would actually admit when they're mad if it means they're losing a game? All that game taught me was to act like I'm not feeling something when I am. I couldn't say something as simple as admitting that I am mad, let alone admitting when I'm sad. This the part he breaks my humility just for practice. Tactics we learned together, sore losers forever. At first I was like, oh, this is a song appreciating the rough lessons Kendrick's dad taught him. But it's also looking at his dad through a critical lens. This song put me in an uncomfortable place because it made me question, are me and my dad's perspectives on life fundamentally different? I am this dude's sperm, and maybe I've grown into a place where we look at the world from an exact opposite lens. And I don't know how many songs that have challenged me to my core in that way. There's not very much songs out there where it feels like every single lyric on it resonates with me. And I'm not just saying that just to say it. I truly mean every single lyric, especially that Kanye one. Once again, I don't want this to come off like a dad-hating manifesto. I really do love my dad. He has made me into the man I am today, and I am content with that man. I've talked about all the things that he's negatively impacted me in, but that doesn't mean there's no positive impact. My dad is like the most let's make an event with tons of people dude ever. Like, he runs a fantasy football league in the coolest way ever, where he plays this weird mustache wearing character that is the commissioner of the league.
Questions at the latter part of this press conference, so please. Excuse me, is this the Sharknado 2 screening?
He always makes these game shows for my family to play whenever we get together. He's obsessed with Christmas and does everything he can to make it feel like an event every year. As a kid, we'd make this cool fort to watch movies in every summer and get 7-Eleven Slurpees every Friday. I wish I could go back to being a kid and read books with him again. I still battle with the downsides of having a drill sergeant for a father to this day. It's easy for me to be ungrateful and ignore everything he's contributed in my life, but when I really sit down and look at what my dad has done for me in totality, I realize that all of the things I love about him, I see in myself currently. The way I see it, this song is Kendrick writing a thank you letter to his dad for all the moments that made Kendrick who he is. I still don't feel brave enough to ever tell my dad any of these things, but maybe I'll play him this video someday. As much as this song is about Kendrick's dad though, it mentions women and how Kendrick is probably more of the sensitive type, which in a toxic masculine world is a thing that we associate mostly with women. I've talked about all these self-discoveries I made throughout the years, but it was only recently that I realized how incredibly sensitive I am. I think those times where it was only me and my mom really impacted me to be more of the sentimental type. One of my favorite lyrics ever is, "It's crucial, they can't stop us if we see the mistakes. Till then, let's give the women a break." I made a video about how important women are on Mother's Day this year that I think is one of my best videos, but this line right here is better than that whole video. It feels like when people talk about Mr. Morale's themes, they usually leave out how important women are to the album's concept. So let's go from a heavy song to a really fun one about men and women's relationships with We Cry Together. I had the lyrics pulled up to this album in preparation for this video, and first of all, the intro to this song is just beautiful. It gets me emotional every time I hear it. I think the intros and outros to all the songs on Mr. Morale are so underrated. Like, whenever y'all re-listen to this album, please pay attention to how well these songs open and exit. But back to what I was saying about the lyrics, this song opens with the refrain, "Hold on to each other." Then there's Whitney, who says, "This is what the world sounds like." And then you get a different refrain from this song. This screenshot alone is like the whole album. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. That duality. I think in all of my favorite works of art, there are so many lines or scenes that sum up not only the concept it's going for, but also just so much of the human experience. I feel like I've already highlighted a few moments that Kendrick does that in this video. Kendrick going from one of the most beautiful intros I've ever heard to one of the most uncomfortable songs ever is just something not many artists have the power of doing. Sometimes I wonder what the hell Kendrick was thinking when he made this. Like, imagine Kendrick asking the Alchemist for this beat. Yeah, just send me a beat that I can yell at my fiance on. I'm sure the Alchemist is just used to it at this point, because 2 years later he made the Meet the Grams beat. The beat being a loop is so crazy because at times it feels like it's the spectator to this absolutely insane argument. Like, obviously the fuck you parts, but also there's so much memorable lines that are scarred into my brain. I should have found a bigger dick. Give me my fucking keys! Like, again, Kendrick had to call this woman up and be like, "Yo, I need you to rap from the POV of my wife, but also we're in an argument and then we have sex at the end." Taylor Page on this, man. goddamn. Kendrick is my favorite musician ever, and hip-hop is a competitive sport that Kendrick participates in. But Jesus Christ, this is the only time you'll catch me saying someone else outperformed Kendrick on a Kendrick song. The voice is cracking, you can hear her breaking down, it's just insane. The song strikes a rare balance to me of being intense, but also very funny. It's the same feeling I get when I watch Whiplash. This really uncomfortable, in-your-face experience, but also some of the lines are so ridiculous that you can't help but chuckle. But the end of the song comes, and they do the thingy thing. They have sex, but I think everyone listening to the song knows they're really just crying together. A lot of people find this song silly, and it's used for memes over random arguments on the internet. And yeah, the memes are funny. I'm not over here like, guys, take it more seriously, stop making memes, oh my god. But I fear some people only see the song that way. I don't think people realize how everywhere the stop tap dancing around the conversation sentiment truly is. Maybe we don't all argue with our significant other and have sex after, but there is so much tap dancing everywhere. We see people tap dance around conversations by sometimes being overly nice to each other, whether that be people pleasing to a fault or doing things for acceptance. But we also see people tap dancing around conversations by being incredibly mean to each other. It's the conditioning that comes with growing up. When we're kids, we take those tap dancing lessons, and those childhood years are the most formative years of our lives. We Cry Together is just a grown-up, ugly-ass final boss version of all the shit we did as kids. We have been tap dancing for so damn long that we are professional tap dancers at this point. This is what the world looks like. To me, one of the biggest challenges of life is to unlearn these things. When you're done with all the hiding and you just have to sit with the ugly truth. That's the second half of the album. That is the Mr. Morale side. In the intro to that side is this beautiful song called Count Me Out.
I know which way to go on this dark road. Mr. Duckworth.
A song about becoming self-aware of how flawed you are, sitting with those ugly truths, and as much as you are filled with guilt, Count Me Out is about being able to forgive yourself. The final lines to this song end it so well. I'm sorry, I'm never gonna do these lines justice, but I'm gonna read them anyways. Lord knows I tried my best. You said it's not my best. I came up out my flesh. Some things I must confess. Spoke my truth, paid my debt. Can't you see I'm a wreck? Let me loose, I digress. This is me, and I'm blessed. This is one of my favorite moments sonically on the entire album. Him rapping like he's crying over that acoustic guitar, the group vocals, and that This song feels like it opens the second half of the album up, and any fear Kendrick had to be vulnerable is thrown out the window. You get him confronting his savior complex. You get him pushing any negative influences away from him on this side. But the one that hit closest to home was Auntie Diaries. I'm gonna preface the Auntie Diaries portion of this vid by saying, if you are offended by anything Kendrick does on this song, then that's completely valid. I respect that. With that being said, I am not offended. I think this is such an accurate portrayal of mixing pronouns and saying certain things you shouldn't from the POV of a confused kid who doesn't fully understand the complexity of gender identity, which is really relatable. I never really considered myself a transphobic or homophobic kid growing up, but I'm not gonna front at all. I would say the slurs a ton. It was just normal to say slurs growing up, but I always would say it in a joking way, not thinking anything by it. This song was one of the reasons why I kept coming back to this album, because this is one of the few songs that actually hit me on those first listens. It challenged the way I thought in a way I didn't see coming. The song made me realize that saying these things and making these jokes was inherently homophobic, and that if you make enough jokes about these things, you eventually start to believe them. This is what I mean when I say that unlearning things you grow up around is hard, because I still know so many people my age that will die laughing if anyone says the N-word in a Call of Duty lobby. And yeah, it wasn't easy to unlearn, but whenever I revisited the album, I would be reminded of the story Kendrick tells, which is now my favorite part of the song. The story with Kendrick's cousin is heartbreaking. Hearing a preacher single out Kendrick's cousin who transitioned from male to female, how their whole family grew distant with them. Like, I be whining about feeling like an outsider because I like weird art. Imagine getting singled out for something as important as your entire gender identity. I do really think Kendrick has a really beautiful moment on this track, when he is the only person that stands up for his cousin in church. I know all I talk about is duality with Kendrick, but it's just crazy that the same guy who made Meet the Grams can do something this kind. Like having an image of young Kendrick defending his transgender cousin in church church is just so sweet to me. And then he does the genius best storyteller of all time thing that he always does, where at the end of the song he raps in the white girl on stage incident for an amazing ending. One of the best songs in hip-hop history. And that's damn near every song, y'all. I wanted to at least briefly talk about a few of the amazing moments on this album I haven't talked about yet before I get into Mother I Sober, so let's do that now. Worldwide Steppers is up there with any other capitalism critiquing songs I've ever heard. The idea of all of us contributing to it in some way and all of us being killers combined with that Jaws theme sounding ass beat is so haunting. Saying everyone is a zombie trying to scratch that itch is such a good description of people. It also reminds me of that one interview scene in BoJack.
We're all a bunch of stupid, hungry, horny little goons just grabbing at shit, hoping it'll press that little button in our brain that says, okay, you're happy now.
We some killers walking zombies trying to scratch that itch.
Savior is a song I really related to when I was trying to self-improve. The core of this song is like waking up and realizing how goofy the world is. Distancing yourself from what the outside world calls a savior and instead focusing on saving yourself. Kind of like a self-love can be selfish moment. I really love that final line where he says, protecting my soul in the valley of silence, and he proceeds to not say anything. And now, for my most controversial take, I really think Kodak Black's inclusion on this album is genius. I understand the criticisms, but Kendrick seeing himself in all of us is a really beautiful thing to me. Being able to see the good in someone like Kodak is something I would have never even thought of doing before this album. But yeah, that's enough beating around the bush. Now on to what feels like what the entire album was building up to, Mother I Sober.
I bear my soul and now we're free.
From the very first line, man. Not even the first entire line, just the first two words. I'm sensitive. Him simply admitting he is sensitive. After everything we've heard on this album, after everything we've heard throughout his career, him saying I'm sensitive with such a soft-spoken delivery over that piano is just so much. But these entire first few lines are maybe my favorite lines in Kendrick's career. You'd think my favorite lines from the guy that has literally rapped quantum physics in one of his verses would have been a little more complex, but geez, man. I'm sensitive, I feel everything, I feel everybody. One man standing on two words, heal everybody. And once again, over that piano with that delivery, Kendrick really could have ended the song there and I'd still get emotional. But then the song gets a lot more uncomfortable. Kendrick talks about being 5 years old, which by the way has to be one of the earliest memories of his life, and watching his mom get abused. He talks about feeling guilt for not being able to defend her. It's a really uncomfortable image for me at the age of 19 to just picture in my head. Imagine being a 5-year-old kid seeing that. A 5-year-old kid blaming yourself for your mom's abuse. I believe everyone has some sort of unresolved trauma, and it's why I think this Beth Gibbons chorus works so well. I think everyone wishes they could be someone else. We wish we could be put in any other life but the one we were put in. You'd think someone like Kendrick, who has all the praise and fame a rapper could get, wouldn't say something like this. But then you hear how heavy this song is and you understand. The way Kendrick paints such detailed pictures of all these devastating memories. His mom telling him that she was sexually assaulted in Chicago, walking in on Whitney crying in the kitchen, him being constantly questioned on if his cousin molested him. It's what I've been saying the entire video. It's what Kendrick's been saying the entire album. The trauma you collect throughout your life from your childhood all the way up until today shapes you. But if you sit with it and look at it in the face, sober, no mask on, that is how you break free. And that's when Kendrick actually becomes Mr. Morale. When he becomes aware of the root of his spending issues and sex addiction instead of passing that trauma down to his children. He then does what he says at the beginning and talks about everybody as he sees this pattern of generational trauma in his community. And he says, free everyone. Free Whitney. Free the hearts filled with hatred. Free all you abusers. This is transformation. For most of this song, Kendrick sounds like a man who has been through everything and is just exhausted by all of it. But the end of it just sounds like he's built up the final strength. He has to get these words out and he's screaming them like they're the most important words he's ever said. And honestly, they probably are. If you had to say 2 words to describe everything Kendrick has been trying to do since day one, it's heal everybody. You can see throughout his career him going about it in different ways and never really ending any of his albums with much hope. It's beautiful to see him find that hope for the first time by looking within himself and focusing on his family family. This is the best song I have ever heard. It's obviously talking in a very specific way about generational trauma within the black community, and as someone who isn't black and hasn't gone through anything near as traumatic as the things Kendrick has, I don't relate to it on a one-to-one level, but just the sentiment of you were not born ugly. You were dropped into a world full of ugliness and you got contaminated. That is universal. I see a world full of that. A world full of misogyny, capitalism, daddy issues, addiction, transphobia, homophobia, you name it. I said that if everyone listened to this album, it had the potential to save the world. And it's because the final lesson that Kendrick learns in this song. If this song and this album are proof of anything, it's that you are not as ugly as your surroundings. You can transform. You can tell this album has helped Kendrick find a new sense of self-love. You can see that in a song like Man at the Garden off of GNX. If I had to take a wild guess, I'd say that instead of passing down even more unresolved trauma, he's teaching his children the lessons he learned throughout this album. Make my son take it further than his father. We deserve it all. Kendrick is clearly done trying to save the world when he's making this album, but what I find beautiful is that if any of his albums had a chance of making a strong impact on millions of people's lives, it would be the one where he's most focused on inner work. I say this because throughout the years I sat down and really listened to this album. It's one of the few works of art that I can say actually changed my life. Kendrick learned all these things in his late 30s and put it all in an album that hit me in my teens. Maybe there's some talented artist my age that loves this album as much as I do, that drops an album that goes even further, if that's possible. And then in like 50 years, there'll come some 6-year-old kid that bumps that album, and then he takes it further, and so on and so on. This is, like I said at the beginning of this video, the ideal simulated world, where each parent makes their kid take it further than they did. In an ideal world, everyone would do this and each generation would improve forever and ever. But if Mr. Morale taught me anything, it's that this world is very far from ideal. And if the reception to Mr. Morale taught me anything, it's that some people aren't really ready to look at themselves in the mirror. Which is understandable, because it's scary. Despite Mr. Morale's themes of breaking free and not passing down your hurt to your children being so important, it never had a chance to save the world. Kendrick knew that. Even if I screamed into that megaphone for everyone to listen to this album, it wouldn't have a chance. And honestly, it hurts that more people don't give it more of a chance, but if Kendrick, the man who made this album, could be like, this album isn't gonna save the world, I'm gonna focus on building my own, then I should be able to let go as well. I think I'll be alright. As much as I want to scream at everyone to give this album another chance, I still don't even think I fully unpacked it. A lot of the issues that I talk about in this video are still a struggle to this day for me. I'm still a work in progress. So instead of praying Mr. Morale will change the world, I think me and everyone that connects with this album should continue to let it change ours.